Hello, and welcome to the House Salt Book Club. We are talking about Book of Night by Holly Black, and this was our June pick. My name is Marines. My channel is My Name is Marines, and I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars, 2.5 or 3. I'm somewhere in that range.
I'm Sam from Thoughts on Tomes. I'm between the 2 and the 3 range. Originally, when I stopped reading it, I was like, that's probably a 3. And then the more I think about it, like the lower it goes. So we'll see what happens when we get done with this.
Fair. I'm Paige from Minimal Bookie, and I think this is a 3 to a 3.5 for me. I'm feeling kind of generous right now, but I'm sure, again, by the end of it, I'll have different opinions.
Yeah.
I'm Connor from just Connor O'Brien, and I just finished this like an hour ago. So my feelings are fresh. I'm thinking it's like a 3.5, but like Paige said, it might drop based off of how this discussion goes.
Yeah, maybe 3. I'm thinking 3. I don't know. We'll see. We'll do the exercise again at the end. How about that? We've solidified anything. Before we jump into talking about the book, we figured it would be good to talk a little bit about our history with Holly Black and whether or not you've read any of her other works and what you've thought about them. So, Sam, you go first.
I only read the Cruel Prince trilogy and had very mixed feelings about all of those books. I did not like the first book. I think I gave it like 2 stars. The second book I liked, and I think I gave it 4. And then the third book was just whatever, and I gave it 3. I haven't read any other books by her because none of them have gripped my attention enough to want to pick them up. But I did definitely, I'm prefacing everything I say about Book of Night with, I did not go into this book expecting Cruel Prince, because that seems to be the critique that is launched on people that don't like it. Like, well, it's not going to be Cruel Prince. And I was like, I was definitely not expecting it to be. So, yeah, and it's not like I thought very highly of Cruel Prince either.
Yeah, I also have only read the Cruel Prince trilogy, and I fucking loved that shit. I ate it up. I read the first book, immediately ordered the second, was waiting for the third, pre-ordered it. I was a huge fan, but like I also knew this was going to be an adult. I knew it was going to be like a different energy, and I was just excited to like read her writing outside of that series to see if I liked it. So I don't know, like I have thoughts and opinions, and we're going to get into them. But yeah,
I've read is it The Darkest Part of the Forest?
Yes.
And I was like and then I also have read the first 2 books in the Magisterium series that she co-wrote with Cassandra Clare. Because it's a middle grade and I like middle grade.
That pairing makes sense to after reading this book.
Yes.
And I stopped reading that series because I didn't like it after the second one. So I don't know. I've had mostly negative experiences.
So Holly Black was one of my like introductions into YA, like the way that it exists now, like the Ugly series by Scott Westerfeld and Tithe by Holly Black were some of like my earliest like YA. So I don't remember Tithe, but not to be all hipster, but I've been reading Holly Black since Tithe. She says, even though she doesn't like her books.
She doesn't like her own books?
No, I'm saying I'm like being hipster and I don't even really like her books like that. I've read The Coldest Girl in Cold Town, which I gave 3 stars. I read The Darkest Part of the Forest, which I gave 3 stars. I tried The Cruel Prince and DNF'd it because I
that was never going to be for you.
Never.
No.
I read within like the first couple chapters, I was like, this does not have my name on it. I put it aside. So I'm always in that like 3-star place with Holly Black, and this book is like right there as well.
Yeah, I was
should probably mention why we also. Oh, there's like a weird delay. Oh, and now Mari's frozen.
Oh no.
Oh, she's coming back. She's a little bit robot-y. Okay. I don't know if it's you or me. I think we should also kind of mention like why we chose to read this book for this too, because we're all coming in being like, we don't really like her. So why did we choose this?
Why did we choose this book? Like, I don't remember at this point.
Well, I think. Go ahead.
No, I think that her premises are always we're kind of like the Alexandra Bracken thing where we read lore. Even though like her past work was middling. And the thing is that like it's 3 stars. So it's not like the worst thing I've ever read. It's not like Stephanie Meyer wrote a new book and we're like, let's read it. Her books are always like fine to me. And this premise was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. And also it's her first adult book, so that made me curious. So I didn't come into it expecting to hate it. I also didn't have like super high expectations because she's not like my favorite author ever. So it was kind of like a blank slate. I was just very neutral going, yes, let's see what this is.
Yeah, I was definitely intrigued about like the jump from YA to adult. A lot of authors have been making, and this following a similar pattern of like, we're gonna make it dark and gritty because this is my adult book, and all of that stuff. But yes, that was mostly what intrigued me. Like, would I like her more? Because I always find her like you were saying, her premises to be really cool, and then she doesn't execute. And she doesn't go far enough. And I was like, well, maybe with an adult book, she'll like be more complex with it and like do more with it. And then she didn't.
Yeah. And then she did it.
Kind of the same thing with like Victoria Schwab for me. I always really like the ideas for her books, and then I don't find myself loving them as much as I was hoping to.
Yeah. Yes. So I think
Victoria Schwab's different though, because I will like her, like some I will love and some I will hate. We're like Black's like just
it's just
right
middling.
Here. Yeah, always.
I've actually heard Holly Black in person, like at events and on panels and in signings. Hilarious. I absolutely love her presence. Like I fell in love with her at events, which made me want to like her books even more because she's hilarious in person. But if you on a panel that I saw her talking about like writing, she was talking about like leaning on other writers and like writing circles and whatnot. And in her own words, she was like, yeah, because I'm bad at plots. So I rely heavily. And I was like, girl, you are. You knew. Like, you knew all along. So anyways.
We love the self-aware queen.
We do. Somebody, Colin in chat said, no clue what this book's about, but I've heard nothing but good about it, which I just think is funny because I read this book literally today and I couldn't give you a summary of what this book was about, honestly. So, but we'll get there. I want to kind of talk characters first because this was an interesting cast of characters for me. So we'll start with the main character, Charlie Hall. What did you guys think about her as a main character?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I'm annoyed about her being the main character. Actually, one, I'm sick of thieves. I love a thief. For me to say I'm sick of thieves is like saying something. But so many authors are like, you know how we can make our character dark and edgy and like morally gray? Make him a thief. They steal, but they don't kill people. You know, so like I get it, but also blah. Also, I wanted, and we'll talk about him, but I think the book would have been so much better in Vince's point of view.
Yes,
and
Vince or Remy. Okay,
yes, but have you guys heard? Because someone told me in the TikTok comments that apparently High Black said originally she was writing it in Vince's POV.
No,
and I was like,
switched.
And she switched it, and I was like, why?
No,
because that would have been a better book. But yeah, I feel like Charlie is so sort of like pulled along. It's not that she lacks agency, but it almost feels like that a little bit sometimes, where she's just kind of like just doing some stuff, and we keep getting flashbacks of how like a good thief she is. I hate
the flashbacks were annoying.
I like the flashbacks. I liked her childhood. No. That was what interested me. No. I didn't care about Prisoner. I will be the outlier.
Flashback.
She had Lila Bard syndrome though, where it was like, I'm a bad thief, and I'm like, I hate this kind of character. I really do. So yeah, I don't buy it. To give me a good thief, you almost have to show me like from the beginning a little bit. Like I don't believe in good thieves anymore. Like there's too many. So she just.
Well, I think she struggled because the character waffles between trying to be a good person, but then she's like this huge thief apparently. But like, but she doesn't come across as a huge thief because she is trying to be such a good person. And then
also
we just
debatable.
Kind of. But then we get a rundown of like all the thieving she's done. It's like, okay, cool.
It's like also when somebody's bragging kind of thing. Like, okay, who are you trying to convince here? Me or yourself, you know?
Right. But all the stuff she kept saying about like, I'm such a bad person. I have secrets. I'm so bad. And I'm like, you're not that bad.
I was shook that her ex-boyfriend shot her. Like that was thrown in randomly, and I was like, "You're trying to be edgy right here, right now."
Trauma.
Yeah, it was literally the trauma thing. I think I just like her childhood self because it felt more like fun to read about her doing these shenanigans versus her just like skulking around in the present. I was like, I'm more interested in all the characters around you than I am like in you in the present.
I am conflicted. I don't think she was like that bad. I think with a lot of things here, it was more like hollow. And I think what I'm more frustrated with is that there was potential there, and then like I don't know, it was squandered, right? So Charlie had the potential to be an interesting character, right? Where you do have this character who's struggling between like being like she was conned into being a con person. Like that is a really interesting origin story. And she's trying to do good, but she keeps getting pulled back into the shadow realm. That's so interesting. And somehow Holly Black manages it to make it like the least interesting version of that. And I think part of it is just I don't know. I honestly don't know what like how she messed this up, but it felt like the character wasn't like 3D. She didn't feel fully realized. She felt pretty flat. So
yeah.
All right. So you already kind of mentioned, Sam, that you wish it was from Vince's perspective. So does that mean that you guys enjoyed Vince more overall?
100%.
And he was barely in the book.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't really do a whole
For
lot.
half of the book. He wasn't there.
He's more interesting. His backstory is more interesting. Like everything is more interesting. So the fact that she like originally was writing from his POV and changed it to Charlie, I almost wonder if she was like, oh, if I have this girlfriend, she kind of like has no agency and it like sort of looks bad and whatever. But I'm like, I would rather have that at this point because he like his story and him like, you know, coming from like a interesting background and then growing up like a rich boy. Well, I guess not Vince, you know, because again we're having Vince as a shadow, whatever. That would have been so cool and so different and so unique than having this like hollow thief character.
Well, I think also it was supposed to be surprising that he was the shadow,
but like I feel like she should have written it. She should have written it to be like if it's from his perspective, like that revelation could have like hit deeper when you're like reading from this character and you don't realize he actually is a shadow.
Yeah, I realized he was a shadow pretty early on.
Oh yeah.
It was pretty like, oh wow, he died.
Because everything that she
obviously the blight or whatever.
Yes.
The way she described him too was like no emotion, so wooden, like blank face, and I'm like, oh, okay, I see what you're
like
doing.
A shadow
here.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was also a line like somewhere. I don't remember now because I read it a couple weeks ago, but like somewhere around when they were like breaking up, that was like, oh, where he's like the truth
I'm never enough.
Worse.
Yeah, he's like I'm never.
Yeah, and he's like I wanted to pretend that this was whatever, and I'm like he's a shadow guy. Like that was when I was fully like I already kind of suspected, but I was like maybe it's a red herring, maybe not, and I was like he's a shadow.
Yeah.
Wait, I know we moved on from talking about Charlie, but one thing about her, and maybe this is like a plot thing also, that just like she kept making bad decisions, and so it's like not necessarily that she was like unlikable, but it just, I don't know, when you have a character that is only making bad decisions, there needs to be balance so that you don't get frustrated as a reader. And I don't know how many times we read her going, I know this was like the worst possible thing that I could do, but I'm gonna do it. And I just got to a point where it was like wearing on me, especially because it always ended badly with her beat up and then just, I don't know, kind of crawling back to her house and waking up tomorrow and doing more bad stuff. So it just became like that cycle of it that I was really annoyed with. So in that regard, I can see like why Vince would be a better point of view character, because I feel like the dynamic would have been different, but it strikes me that she wrote it from Charlie's point of view so that she could do the big twist, like the big reveal of like, and he was a shadow all along.
Yeah. But like Paige said, I think that you could still have written that twist from like his point of view, like either her confronting him and that's when we find out or whatever. And like there also the thing with her being this like thief character supposed to be so good, and then she makes all these bad decisions and like isn't sneaky. Someone mentioned in chat that she didn't know any self-defense. And like you're just kind of like, okay, you're supposed to have been doing this for so long, and then you're not actually doing any of the things that would make me believe that you're this like master thief like character.
I also think like with her being such a skilled thief and having a basically a training room in her basement with silks and stuff, I'm like, how does Posey not know anything? Like, what is going on? And I was so thrown off that she had a training room at all.
It was giving a nudge when she was like, "I'm gonna go on my silks." I was
Yeah.
like,
I forgot about the silks until just now.
from? Yeah. It was like one scene, one throwaway scene where
Yes.
she's like, I used to do this all the time. Let me practice right now. She was also doing it with me. Like, yeah.
How did you guys, find the relationship between Vince and Charlie? Because I was going through reviews on Goodreads just to see like more or less what people thought, and I saw a couple that complained about like the romance in this, the romantic element or whatnot. I personally, again, in theory, really like this idea of joining a relationship that's already sort of formed, but you see them both like hiding secrets and like wanting for more and like unable, like that is really cool in theory. And for a portion of it, that was the best part of the story. But then Vince goes away for such a long chunk that I was like bored. And then the end just kind of seemed a little rushed and then cliffhanger. So I was ultimately left unsatisfied, but I did like it in the beginning. I did like them in the beginning.
I actually liked them. Maybe because it was in contrast to everything else, and I was like, this is the most likable part of the story.
Yes.
But like, I also like the stoic dude kind of vibe that he had, and like when he would he's like stoic without being angry. Like he's almost like a counter to alpha male, where he seemed like very just like settled in, I don't know, like masculine energy, because like that one guy was trying to goad him at the beginning and he just was like, no.
Yes.
Pretty competent. I mean, he's a like shadow dude. He kills someone and he's like, I'm gonna go take care of this. All right, just don't worry about it. So like that I kind of liked, and then just the stuff at the end. Like actually, the very ending. If I would have had the second book already, I might have just jumped into it just out of curiosity, because the fact that she like takes him, and now he like doesn't know who she is, and they're attached. Like, what? That is actually like kind of cool. But yeah, I liked their relationship. But will it be one that I'm like, I want fan art and I'm gonna ship it forever? Like, no, I'm gonna forget about it.
I feel like it took I didn't really buy into they were like deeply in love with each other situation, because if you're not really fully giving yourself to someone, how could they really be in love with each other to the point where he at the end was like fighting for all that kind of stuff? Like I loved it because I love like him being stoic, but making her eggs and making sure she's like cute. Like I love those moments of it, but I didn't fully buy in to like the actual seriousness of their relationship by the end of it, when I was supposed to be like, oh, they're like destined to be together. Of course she's gonna tie him to her, like that stuff. I was sort of
well, I just was
Bessie, you barely knew him.
Yeah. and also like, so we see all these small moments where he's doing stuff for her, but I don't think she does anything for him, not once in the whole book.
Yes.
Like,
but like she provided the normalcy that he wanted as like a shadow dude.
Yeah.
So like I kind of, again, I sort of like, he was like, I was playing pretend with you, whatever. And just the idea of like the shadow dude who like didn't know what to do with like at his life at that point, and he's like a one night stand that never went home. Like I just sort of love that for some reason. I'm just like, and then now they're like very sort of domestic in a lot of ways before all the stuff unravels. I'm like, that's just kind of cute to me for some reason. I don't know.
I would have liked it better if Black had left it there, like shadow guy one night stand never went home, because he like immediately attached to her. So when they connected him back to her, and that one night that she was at Salt's house, like I didn't like that as much. This like whole like I've known you all along, I've loved you forever sort of thing, that came out of nowhere to me. I would have rather it just been like he literally saw her at the bar, was like cool, let's go, and then stayed forever. So the reveal when she was like, oh, it was you at the house, I don't like it.
I actually forgot that like that was a thing. My brain was like, that doesn't go with our narrative, we're getting but like because but I didn't get the sense, and maybe I just glossed over this part, I didn't get the sense that she was necessarily trying to be like, I've loved you all along. That it was more so like he was at the bar, he sort of was like, do I know you? And then was like, well, I'll just talk to this girl. It's not like he was like tracking her or like
no.
watching from afar.
He just remembered her from before.
Yeah, he was like, oh, like
it was accidental.
Yeah, but even so, I wish they would have just like not done that. But I guess
he didn't even know the connection. Like, why does he remember this from?
Or like she remembers the voice or whatever.
Okay. I forget. Posey is the name of the sister. Do you guys have feelings about her?
She was cute. Yeah.
I like a sister dynamic. I'm like very drawn to sibling dynamics in general, but I actually didn't like them. I don't.
Fair.
There was something
You
about
love a
like,
bratty sister usually.
there was something about their dynamic. I think she was too bratty. I think that
Mm.
she was too bratty combined with Charlie making too many bad decisions. So the
Mhm.
whole thing just made me a little bit uncomfortable. And then she was like only there sporadically, and when she showed up, it was just like brat, and then leaves. And so I don't know, it wasn't giving. And again, usually I'm like, ooh, a sister dynamic, and somehow Holly Black did not. She squandered
You were
it.
primed for it. You like were
Yeah,
ready
yeah.
to like it. You know?
They don't
Yeah.
really focus on how she's sacrificed things for her sister, and they didn't focus on any small moments between the sisters where you would be like, oh, they do actually like each other.
No.
Like the whole thing is that Posey is obsessed with becoming whatever they're called,
Yes.
Glomer.
a magic person.
Glomer.
And then-
Glomus.
Yeah,
Glomus.
and then she's mad that she's not.
Mhm.
She's tried to like torture herself apparently, and then at the end she becomes one because she gets what's her face's shadow.
I mean, they basically needed someone to take on a shadow, and like so having like be a sister that's like really obsessed with being a shadow magician.
It's like, okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish it was a little bit more. I do think that we could have gotten like a stronger relationship between them, and like, Charlie being like a substitute parents because their mom was the worst or whatnot. But it really was just like every time we saw them, it was like bad dynamics.
Yeah.
You're like, it's gross.
Any other characters there were about 100 other characters.
yeah.
And they all had 3 names for some reason. So they kept like, it would be, their like magic or like secret stealer name and then their real name. And I'd be like, who is this person? I had such a hard time keeping track of anybody that was not those 3 people and like the main bad guy.
Anytime they were like, oh, and Dawn's here, I'm like, who is
Who?
Dawn?
Yeah.
Was there a Dawn, or did you just
Yes.
Dawn was
Dawn.
her hospitality friends. He worked in hospital, which is why he was the one that got her into the.
Balthazar?
Again, read this in 2 days, so I remembered. Balthazar was I could list.
Okay,
I know
I remember
who those people are.
Balthazar, and I know her like dominatrix like
Odette.
boss.
Odette,
Odette,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Odette.
Well, I don't know. The Hierophant, Balthazar, there were a bunch of the Cabal members, Adam,
And Doreen.
her
and
high
Susie.
school friend or whatever, that
Susie.
Doreen girl. I wanted to punch her in the face so bad.
That was the friend that had the boyfriend that was all shitty.
Yeah.
And
That
then he
died
got
and got
opened
killed.
up
Yeah.
in her home.
Yes.
Right, brutal.
Yeah.
Red.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
We're just saying words now. No one understands.
How did you guys feel about
The book guys, it feels like they're just like, well, Dawn's here, and you're like, who?
Literally, I mean, I forgot.
You're like, oh, Jose let me in. Jose, we met him. Okay, that brings us, I think, to the world, which is our world, urban fantasy, right? So it's like basically a normal world, except for shadow magic exists. So how did you feel about the world and the world building? Because I wasn't a fan.
Yeah. I've been saying about the same thing about every element, but yes, the world was really the thing where I'm like, you could have made this so cool and you just didn't, because she just like didn't explain a lot of the stuff. Like, so there's these different types of shadow magicians. I don't know what any of them do besides the one that like can alter their shadows.
Yeah.
But like nothing about any of it, why it is so cool, why it makes them super like wealthy and like whatever. Like, okay, so we've seen a couple people that can like manipulate their shadows to make them do stuff, but it's still, I don't know, like not really fleshed out. All the stuff when we were talking about characters, about like the Hierophant and like there was other like tarot names of things, which to me really pissed me off, because I'm like, if you're gonna go this tarot route, like commit. And she didn't. She used like 2 tarot card names. How are tarot cards significant? Why did you choose tarot cards as like a system? I don't know. Like, you don't need to have a fully like expansive world, but when you drop some of these things in and then don't explain them, it's like, just don't even give them a name like that then. Don't bring in tarot cards as like a thing and then don't do anything with it.
Yeah, I think like I also just left it not understanding how the shadow magic works in general. Like, I feel like there's no actual system in place. It doesn't have to be like a full system. I don't need to know all the rules, like, but I truly didn't understand the difference between each shadow person, or like how you acquired, like how you became more powerful besides like feeding it blood and energy. Like the only part I really enjoyed, there was like this one little nugget that was just glossed over where they were talking about like the past and how like the Glow-Mists weren't able to contact each other, so that's why they were never that big, because it was the development of technology that allowed them to connect with each other. I thought that was cool. Glossed over completely. Not great otherwise, but that one part of the world building, I was like, sick. That is a good explanation.
I kind of like went the opposite way. I was like, how did all of these like grimoires survive
Also
such
that,
a long
yeah.
time without people keeping them around? Like they're like, this is from the 15th century. I'm like, okay, so someone had to like look at this and take care of it for hundreds and hundreds of years. How was there no like very
what would have been
underground
cool?
small group?
Yeah,
If
underground.
Charlie was a librarian for these kinds of books, if that had been her into the
There's so
Holly
much
Black read that
potential
book.
in other places. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think sometimes when it comes to magical books, though, it's very hand wavy about how stuff always survives, right? That there's always like this. It's a grimoire, and like someone has it, you know,
Yeah,
like
right.
it's never, you know. And it was kind of established that like these rich Glow-Mists that are like generational, like salt, would probably like keep them. So it was less about that for me and more about like, and I liked that, like what Paige was saying about it explains why they haven't been like fully established and they're sort of like a new thing. But I would have liked to even sort of see a little bit more about like how the rest of the world reacts to them. Like we just had this very narrow view of like how people react to this, like being like, oh yeah, celebrities always change their shadow, and I'm like, but why? I mean, I guess just like a cosmetic thing, but I'm like, oh, okay. Again, I could have gone like fully complex magic system and been happy, but even just a little bit more, like it just felt like there was pieces dropped in, and then like I needed just like a smidge more to really flesh it out.
Yeah, I did like the like explanation or the piece of the world building that was like, you know, at first they made sort of the information in the books widely available, but then that got away from them. Like somebody would upload a PDF that wasn't complete, and then a bunch of people died, and that's when they started to pull information back. So like the swing of like, you know, hoarding information, like, you know, went the other way. I thought that was a really neat piece of world building. So like along with like Paige's example, there were things every now and then that I was like, ooh, okay, you thought about this a little. And then every like other page I was like, you didn't think about this at all. So it just kept swinging back and forth to me. And again, I can do soft, hazy magic systems, ones that don't have a lot of rules. But in that case, I would even rather that, you know, it's like, you know, there is no explanation. We don't know why this happens. It just is, sort of thing. Just tell me that so I know. But, you know, if you're going to start trying to explain things about feeding it blood and energy, then you've got to give a little bit more, because what it felt like was just like with the characters, she would just drop things and be like, oh yeah, celebrities can change their shadows, moving on. And you're like, wait, what, how does that work? You know, how does that add into the world building? But it just never was cohesive. It didn't come together.
Yeah, and you could tell, I mean, like you said, that she would show you that she had thought about it, but then didn't fully connect all the dots. Because when she visits Raven, who is the like tattoo artist person, or she changes people's shadows for them or whatever.
Yeah, the
and so she kind of explains that she has to, what'd you say?
I think it was like Augmenter or something. It's the only one that I like knew. The
Alterationist, I think.
Yeah, that's it. And she like has to cut a part of her shadow to do it, and then so she has to consume like these like rats' shadows or something. So there were things, but then it didn't fully round out.
No, it did not come together.
But maybe we see more of it in the second book. I think part of it maybe is because we were Charlie Hall's perspective, where she wasn't fully interacting with the Glow-Mists and wouldn't understand how it works. And hopefully that's fixed book 2, but I don't. High hopes.
Yeah. This is reminding me of the scene where she goes to like her sister contacts somebody with like information and they interview her.
University.
Like,
the doctor guy that is dating Posey by the end of the book. Yeah. Taking her out for meals.
So weird. So another instance where it's like, this is such a bad idea. Why are we doing this? And it just felt like so out of left field. I don't know. The whole thing. had these moments where it's just like, I don't understand why we're doing this. Okay, I think that what haven't we talked about yet? The plot?
Yeah.
The plot? How did you guys feel about the plot?
I mean, we
It's
kind of
okay.
have touched on it,
Yeah.
where it was like annoying to watch her fumble around,
Yes.
flashbacks.
Oh,
It's
the
a-
flashbacks.
Okay, guys, please let the flashbacks rest in peace. They were
There were things about the flashbacks that I enjoyed. Like some of the stuff about like seeing how she got conned into being a con person, like that was good. There were moments though that were too little on the nose, like when she got her knife that we kept hearing about. That it was like the onyx knife or whatever it was. Yeah, it can sever a shadow, and then that becomes so important later at the end. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, calm
She doesn't
down.
even use that knife. She ditches it at some point.
She what?
Yeah, she buys a new
Ditches
knife
that
at
knife, she gets a
the
new one at the pawn
yeah
shop.
the pawn shop that gets sold. Yeah.
Oh yes, she does. She does.
She's
use
like, this
it.
one's chipped. And she replaces it.
Yes. Yeah, but I felt like some of the flashbacks were a little like too on the nose for like giving us important context for something that might happen later. So
Yeah.
I was
It took me
also hoping
100.
she would... Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go. I was just gonna say it took me 120 pages to get into because it was such a slow beginning,
It's
and I
very
feel
slow.
it was kind of the end was rushed. So like there were definitely
Right.
pacing issues with the plot itself alone.
yes. Connor?
I was just gonna say with her weapons thing, she buys these like gloves with like fingernail weapons.
Oh, she bought those?
Yeah, I think so. She didn't even
Huh.
use them. I was hoping she
Maybe
would like
book two.
actually be battling, but she doesn't have any training, so I guess that would not make
Yeah.
any sense at all. But
Yeah.
we should have talked about what's Remy's sister aunt. What is her name?
Adelaide?
Adeline?
Adeline?
Yeah.
Is-
Sister aunt.
does
The
she-
incesty sister aunt.
Does she rape
yeah.
the shadow? Is that what was
We
happening?
didn't. So we touched on this like
Yeah.
a little point, but we're like, okay, so it's incestuous, but it's not because it's a shadow, but it is because it's a shadow and it's him, or
But
like
it's also-
it looks like him. But like, yeah, Vince didn't really seem to have wanted it. 'Cause, yeah, there was this like she's like, we play games that are different, but then like he
And he's like,
definitely
I hate
makes it-
her.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe incesty rape vibes.
Love
What
that.
was that
Why?
about?
Why? But like, why too?
Yeah.
Like,
That's part of that thing of like YA author writes adult. There's gonna be
Dark and
something
To be as,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
some
this
things
was
are gonna
this
show
was
up.
the ghost scene from Ninth House.
That's exactly it. A
Yeah.
YA author writing adult, you're gonna have a bunch of drug use for no reason. Drug or alcohol is just gonna be like
The amount of
Fucking
times ketamine was
alcohol.
mentioned.
yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
yes. and for what? For why? And then also there's gonna be some sort of sexual assault or rape because it's an adult book.
Of
And
course.
it's
Dark and
like,
gritty.
why is this happening? Listen,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I wanted Charlie to be 17 years old because that would not have made sense. It was fine that this is an adult book and she was the age that she was, but nothing really about the tone or like it still felt like Holly Black's YA books to me,
Yes.
except for the character is older and drugs. And so I don't know that I'm always like, why are we doing this?
it had the same energy of like the violence in the Cruel Prince series, where it was like very like for the teen eye kind of. I think maybe because they knew teens would be picking up regardless of it being adult, so they tried to make it less. I don't know. That's me trying to give them
people
some.
out.
Yeah.
Well, but she also like we're saying, she like the exact same, and not that things are going to change drastically, so I guess I was being optimistic before about it being an adult book and being different, but like the same writing problems that she has continued. Like she didn't use the adult sort of like genre or age category to like do something different besides just being like drugs and sexual violence. Like it was just, she had the same pacing issues that she always has. She has the same world building, like hand wavy whatever that she always has, the same potential, like telling us that the character is like so big and bad when they're like not. Like all of these things at least happened a lot in Cruel Prince too. So it was like,
Yeah.
again, yeah, why you didn't do anything new to make it like, again, make sense to be adult. I also wouldn't want this as a teen book, but like
Mhm.
beyond that, like why
I
not
think-
do more with it?
she just doesn't have any experiences that kind of mark her as an adult. So like she had her kid experiences, and then there's nothing that really like happened while she's an adult that's significant to remember. So she was almost murdered when she was 15, and then she jumped to present day. Like she hasn't.
How old is she supposed to be?
She's
Also
30.
No, she did not.
No, she's not. No, she's not.
Yeah,
No.
there's no way.
No, she's not. No, she's not.
No way.
I'm
Connor.
pretty sure she's supposed to be 30.
Connor,
Stop.
stop
No,
this.
she's not.
I'm not
I
making
am
it
more
up.
mature
That's
than
so
29.
Mine was in my head for some reason. I don't know if I'm making that up.
I'm pretty sure
There's
she's
no
Google
fucking way.
tell me.
There's no way because her sister is
13.
college age. Posey's college
I mean,
age.
People have age caps.
I mean, my brother and I are 10 years apart.
No, this cannot be. Someone tell
Maybe-
us, please.
I would
maybe
not
not,
accept
but I
anything
thought that
older
she
than
was
24.
supposed to be.
Yeah, I
Correct.
also wouldn't accept anything older than
Correct.
24.
Oh my god.
There's nothing very obvious. Other people have Googled it though, because it popped up like, how old is Charlie Hall? But like, I'm not getting any age stuff.
Yeah.
Well, because I think that they talked about something being like 15 years ago or something like that,
Shoot, no,
which would mean that she would be like in her
28. 28.
Okay, late
Oh.
20s. Okay,
But
so.
still
Wow.
older than
But
she should
but
be.
and she didn't go to college, so she didn't like extend the childhood
Yeah.
whatever. Like she went straight from being in high school to adult life. But she doesn't have, I mean, and someone said in the comments that she was being shot, but it was like, or she had been shot, but it got
Significant,
glossed over.
Yeah.
So
I felt like a
And
lot
she
of the
mentioned like paying
violence-
off the hospital bills for being shot. So
right.
that was really recent.
I feel like a lot of the violence was sort of glossed over, especially like the violence that she would be like, "Oh, I got punched in the face and my ribs," and then the next scene she'd be like, "Doo doo 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 doo."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Ow, are you sorry?" My dog is barking at every single firework.
So is mine.
So, but yeah, the violence was also like weirdly glossed over.
That's fair.
That was not a 28-year-old woman.
That was not. As a 20-year-old woman, that was not a 28-year-old woman.
That was a 23-year-old Max.
Oh my god. I will say one good thing about Holly Black. I will give her one prop. She knows how to write an ending that will hook me to want to read the next book, at least immediately. If it was available to me, like Sam said, I would have picked it up because I want to know what's happening with Vince and Charlie.
Yes.
But like,
Yes.
that's the one thing I'll give her.
Compelling enough cliffhangers, but not in the way that I'm like suffering waiting. I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay.
This time I'm not
If I
suffering
have,
waiting, no.
Yes, if I have enough, if like the next book comes around and I'm like,
We have a lull. We're like, what can we read
yes,
now?
yes, or like intrigued enough.
I had heard like about the cliffhanger, especially because this was advertised as a standalone, and now
Yes.
it's got a number 2 or whatnot.
Yes.
So I was like prepared, but to be upset. But I feel like this is like a cliffhanger. It solved the primary story that was told, and it was just more like a cliffhanger of like the characters and the relationship. So I wasn't mad at this as a cliffhanger. Like if I had known this was a series, I would have been fine with this cliffhanger. The only reason that I was like salty was because I thought it was a standalone and it wasn't. So
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, because I guess they
just
did
keep
solve
doing that.
they killed off the big bad,
yes,
and it was the sister aunt that killed him, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The
And
sister
they all
killed
get-
him?
Yeah, because Charlie mentioned seeing blood on Adeline's
hands.
hands, and Adeline's the only heir to the money and everything. So
Oh, okay.
stabbed
I
him.
thought the
She
shadow
stabbed him like
killed
27
him.
times or something.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought the shadow killed him.
We're all supposed we think that the shadow killed him, but
Mhm.
he was killed with a letter opener, like a bunch
33
of
times. Yeah.
So Charlie puts it together that it was actually her, and who knows if maybe she just helped it along. Like maybe
Yeah,
the
I feel
shadow
like probably
just
made
got
sure
finished.
that he was gonna die. Yeah.
Finished
So
him
she will
off.
probably be the big bad in the next one, or other Cabal people probably.
Yes, yeah, the Cabal is out.
Yeah, I
this
feel
was
like-
a good
yeah.
ending for a series. We just
It
didn't
sets
know.
up more for the next book. Yeah. Yeah.
The Cabal.
Yeah,
That was
I
so
just
weird to me,
wish-
too.
I just wish that like publishing houses would stop doing this. Like, it's a standalone when you know it's not. Like,
Yeah.
if it's definitely like it's not like, especially if it has a cliffhanger. Like
Mhm.
you're blatantly not a standalone then. you can't even be semi-treated like a standalone. And also, it's Holly Black. She's gonna sell enough books for you to like continue on regardless. Like even if the book community doesn't like it, there are plenty. Like I'm sure it made the bestsellers or something. Like I'm sure it's fine. So you're gonna give her a second book. Just say that from the beginning.
Is there anything we're missing? Also, Paige, Connor, you guys were like on the higher end of the scale, like 3.5 star. So what worked for you? Because
what did you like?
The main thing that worked for me was the relationship. Even though I said I didn't fully buy into it, it was the most enjoyable part to read of that book, even though he was missing for most of it. The flashbacks worked for me, y'all. I'm not get into it again, but those worked for me, so that was probably the 0.5, and I like the ending. So once I like the ending, I feel like I'm more forgiving, being like, it took me on a journey. Didn't enjoy some of it, but that end, you landed. Solid.
I think for me, I was also comparing it to books that I've read from her in the past.
Mm.
And so it was just kind of like the same level, and that's what I've rated some of her books that I've previously read. But I mean, I enjoyed, I think because I also had to read this book so fast because I started it this morning and had to read it by now. So I read it really, really quickly. So I didn't notice as many of the issues because I didn't have any time to put the book down, or else I wasn't going to make it. So
that's fair.
I read it so fast that it was just like.
And to be fair, this is the lowest rating I've given a Holly Black book, because all her other books I fucking like. Well, the ones that I've read, I was obsessed with. So this is like the lowest rating. So I admit the issues to it.
Valid. I think it's very funny, Connor, that you basically did like a lawyer thing where you're like, well, there's precedent here in previous cases that, like, you know, we've done 3.5 in previous cases with Holly Black. So therefore,
my attorney
like, this is going to be a 3.5. Yes, that's why I started laughing at you in like the middle of your description.
Oh my god!
You know what? Fine enough. I am a lawyer.
you're like the tracks. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think probably that is the best way to read this is like just sort of like binge, dedicate 2 brain cells to it and no more, because if you dedicate more, it's not going to work. But also, a few people said that they like started the book and DNF'd it, and I
Understandable.
That is pretty understandable.
Yeah.
Because the beginning is really slow. It does pick up at the end, but it isn't a significant enough pickup that I would be like, no, stick with it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that the quality overall of the storytelling is pretty even. So within the first couple of chapters, if you're not vibing, you're not gonna vibe. I don't feel like
Just watch this video. We told you
everything.
And the thing is like I probably would have DNF this if I hadn't been for book club.
Same.
Which I know we can DNF things, but I just like don't because I want to be able to talk about it. And it wasn't because I was hating it. It was just like, okay, this isn't like ripping me. Like I'm not like, oh, like I'm interested in this piece. Like it was like, okay, I'm reading it just to get the discussion for book club at this point.
Yeah. Honestly, yes, that is why I continued it.
I mean, I started it today, so I'm on the same page.
That's why
So we talked, I mean, we have mentioned like if the second book was available, like you would read it. And I guess the consensus is like maybe if you remember enough, you'll pick up the second book.
Also, if I get it for free, because my friend had the arc for this one, so if it appears before me.
Yeah, I could do like I'm thinking it might be like library audiobook a little after it comes out to see what everyone like thinks of it. Even because the ones that are going to read it are probably going to be the ones that already liked the first one. So people like that liked the first one are like, oh, it's not worth it. It's like, okay, well then like you went in with a higher expectation even than I would. So like then maybe, and again, depending on how long it takes to come out. If it's like a year or more.
Yeah, I think it also depends on what the synopsis is going to be because she has to come up with a new problem. And I don't know.
I mean, the main problem is she's hunting blights and her blight doesn't know who she is anymore.
Right.
She's gotta steal back his heart.
Yeah.
And I can kind of vibe with that. Like if she makes it much more political, not political, a relationship-y like stuff, I can kind of, but if she starts going down the line of like Adeline's the new big bad or the Cabal.
There's another book to find.
Yeah, like I won't do that. But if she just focuses on the relationship stuff and like blights and whatever, I can maybe.
I also to kind of I do like the relationship stuff, but I will not that I trust Holly Black to do it well, but I could vibe with like now having joined herself with the Blight or whatever means that her and Posey both are like gaining power. Like I would like to see these disaster sisters like actually wield some power. I think that could be fun, like a fun take on it or whatnot.
Yeah.
So if something starts happening along those lines, I'd be interested.
If it does, I would want that jealousy between Posey and Charlie to be addressed, because it's not going to go away, because she has a really powerful shadow already, because Vince, or Red, because he goes by Red now, is already so much farther along because he's killed a bunch of people, he's got tons of blood, like, and Charlie's shadow was like an infant when it got moved over.
Yeah.
So she's not going to have the abilities that Charlie potentially could have. And so I would rather that finally get addressed and start to see the relationship work.
Yes.
better.
Imagine if Posey had gotten Red. The fucking chaos that kid would have done. I would have paid to see it. Please.
That would have been like a CW show.
Wait, like, here's
My
the other
concept.
thought that I had is that as much as this was like bland to me, the reading experience, I can see this being adapted into like a really amazing soapy, like
First Kill or whatever it's called, the like vampire Sapphic show that everyone, if I could see it being, I was watching that while reading this and I'm like, the energy is the same, it's the same vibe.
Well, because like an adaptation would be able to do so much more, because it would just like automatically flesh out the world with it being visual. So like that would just I could see that
being very aesthetic, like with the shadow world and like that whole thing, I think, and then having like the disaster sisters as the main characters,
It would be so much brooding. It would be insane.
Yeah,
so much
a lot of
angst.
brooding. Yes.
Okay, who would we fan cast as Vince though? I need to know. Who were you picturing? What was I didn't picture anyone. Yeah.
They kept telling me he was blonde, right? And I was like, I reject
he's
it.
blonde.
I was obviously thinking of Glenn Powell from Top Gun, because that's the most recent blonde man in my peripheral vision.
Who is that?
I need to search and put this on my screen. Oh my god, please hold.
I don't know what that means.
Oh my god.
I was actually, so because they described him as like big and hulking, and I feel like this is the guy that I always picture, Joe whatever, the guy that played El Cid in True Blood. Do you guys remember True Blood?
He's blonde?
Okay. So like a similar here.
He's blondish in Top Gun. Blondish.
Okay.
Blonde adjacent. We can dye his hair. We can bleach it. Or the guy from Umbrella Academy. That's like the Luther.
Yes.
See, I did not picture.
Because he's pretty.
Yeah, he's like.
I did not picture a blonde. I pictured this guy.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah, probably why I liked Vince more. I just pictured like a broody, because he was like broody and like, strong silent type. Like I pictured like a very like blue collary type dude.
Yeah.
Would wear a flannel.
As we're talking about this, I'm getting more and more upset about what this book could have been, because it was all the ingredients that were there. This idea of like a super, like somebody who was like in the con thief space but is trying to get out, and now she's a bartender taking care of her disaster sister who's like over there trying to split her tongue to get magic, like that is all so freaking cool. How did Holly Black make it so dull? And also it's like 300 something pages. It's short. It's not even like super long. And I was like, oh, another chapter. Like
the past.
Oh my gosh. Not the past again.
Yeah, that's the thing with Holly Black's books though. Like the pieces are there, and so it's like you're making this like delicious meal, and then you taste it and you're like, okay. There's no seasoning here. Like, what is going on? Why did this not come together properly?
Yeah,
I think what going back to the flashbacks, what annoyed me was that it was always when something dramatic was about to happen. So it was like the end. It was like a cliffhanger at the end of an episode to make you watch the next episode, but you have to get through a less exciting, boring episode before you get back to what's going on. And that's usually a flashback episode. Yeah, and I prefer flashbacks when there's a lull, so that we can get something that's maybe a little more exciting than what is happening at the end of of the current chapter, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So like if she had gotten, so we have this battle with the guy that attacked her in the bar, he gets killed, and she gets home and everyone's safe, lull, and then a flashback, and then we pick up the story again. That's what I like.
Yes. Now we're fixing it. We adapted it, and now we're fixing it.
Which means, like, again, the structure is there, which is what we also from the beginning. We're like, okay, this is why it's not like a 2 or a 1, because like there is something there that she just doesn't know what to do with.
The last thing I will say, and I'm usually pretty good about pinpointing stuff in writing that bothers me, but I cannot tell you what about Holly Black's writing is not like, it's not terrible, but it's just a little like unseasoned chicken is really what her writing gives to me. So in the hands of a better writer, this could have been so much like more vibe heavy. It could have been more like atmospheric, and I just got bland also.
I think for this one, she is really exposition heavy, especially at the beginning, which is probably why it's so slow and people DNF it. But I think with a lot of adult books and adult books that people like is that you just kind of start and you kind of put pieces together as you're going. But this one had a huge info dump right at the beginning where she like goes through all the things. So I think that was probably a detractor.
That's what I was laughing at.
Me too.
I also love the earlier one with Peace and Love.
Wait,
which I'm gonna start saying.
It's like she's always writing a debut novel. Every novel is her debut novel.
Oh my gosh.
But no, I'm really glad you mentioned that, Maddie, because like I've been saying that when I've been talking about this book, about like I don't know what it is about her writing, and I cannot place it, but like there's something that it's just like not giving, and I do think it's just that blandness where like it feels so like I guess the debut novel thing, it almost feels so simple, and you'd think
it is very simple.
Yeah, which is probably why it is sort of popular in a lot of ways, because it can appeal to a lot of people at different like reading levels and whatever.
But then there's simple like Cassandra Clare simple, where she still manages to make me thirst after and angst for these characters.
No, baby,
versus
it is different. I will say Cassie Clare's like a little bit more seasoned. Like she's put on salt and black pepper.
Literally.
You know,
but her books are also like 700 pages long now.
Yeah.
It's a big chicken. Okay. It's a big chicken, but it has basic seasonings. Like Holly Black is just giving, just unseasoned chicken. It's very gross.
I think to Connor's point, okay, another way that I would fix this, I think it needed to be a little bit more descriptive.
Will you write this down and send it to her?
Yeah.
Okay. So for the next book, make sure you do this.
So the placement of the flashbacks, really important.
If this ever gets sent to her editors.
A little more description would have been great, but I think that maybe more dialogue and less of like the exposition, like some snappy we had a bunch of like, these characters that are, edgy or whatnot. So I think more dialogue would have gone a long way towards making this more readable, because we were just sitting there getting names thrown at us and things like that, and like info dumps and exposition. So yeah, she needed a little more spice.
Yep.
These chicken metaphors.
Honestly, it's baked chicken as a tattoo, because that's really funny. Baked chicken.
That's it. Anything else? Any final thoughts? Anything we didn't bring up that you'd like to share?
Not a thought.
Not a single one. We thought them all. If anybody has any questions for us or any final things in the chat, you can let us know now. In the meanwhile, we will announce that July's book is The First Sister by Linden A. Lewis. This is a reread for me, which I wanted to do anyways, because the second book is already out, and I enjoyed this. I really liked it when I read it. I'm nervous. I'm going to reread it, and the curse of how salt is going to strike on me. This is terrible. But I think we're all going to have a reasonably good time with this. Fingers crossed. So.
I think, and also, I don't want to jinx it, but I do think we're going into a good period, because the next handful of books are all, like, I will be very stunned if they're, like, below 3s, for example. I mean, it's happened before, but, go ahead.
No, go.
I was just saying, like, we have this, and then we have N.K. Jemisin, 100,000 Kingdoms somewhere in the lineup, and we have Babel by R.F. Kuang. So like we have good authors coming.
Yes. Yeah. I forgot that I was going to ask you guys at the end what your ratings are now. So Sam?
I think I'm going to sit a solid between 2.25 and 2.75. I can't.
So
I can't.
2.5.
2.5.
I don't think it's. But I don't want to commit to 2.5. I don't know.
You can never change your rating after this.
Exactly, and this will contribute to my end of the year rating when we do our compilation video.
Oh, God.
I
Oh.
post my ratings all the time. So you always take my rating from the video, and I look at my Goodreads. I'm like, that's not what I did, but you know.
It is. Yeah. Maybe it's 2.5. 2.5 feels too generous. I think it's 2.25.
Okay.
Which I never do a 0.25. I'm usually not a quarter rater.
I think I'm a 3. I'm a 3 now instead of a
I'm a
3.5.
I think I'm a 3. I think
Yeah.
I'm a 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't terrible.
I mean, yeah.
No, like it's not. It definitely. Okay, so maybe I don't know. That's why I can't decide. I feel like I don't, like, similar to what Connor was saying with like the precedent. I don't feel like I hate it as much as I've hated other 2-star books.
Yes.
But it doesn't quite feel good enough for a 3 either.
Okay, so here's the other question that I had, which I totally forgot, which is why I moved on. But let's get spicy now, because we've had a string of books that we had high expectations
Not again.
for that
Not
are
as
failed.
books again.
So how does this stack up to Jade City and the Bone Season specifically? Because I think that those are the two that we were the most disappointed by.
Okay. Jade City has better writing, but it was more of a disappointment because I was going and expecting better. So I'm almost more salty in retrospect because I wanted something more from it and I was expecting to love it. The Bone Season is worse than this.
Yes.
Like the Bone Season is objectively horrible.
Yeah.
But like, yeah. And then I would say that also These Violent Delights is probably worse than this as well.
What did I give the Bone Season? Because if it wasn't a 1-star, I was wrong.
You gave it like 2 something.
No,
I was like, I don't understand like why you're being so nice today.
I don't know.
It was very odd of you to do that.
No, in retrospect, that's like a 1-star book for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think I said Jade City was worse. I was wrong.
You were wrong, and I was like very mad at you. If we go back and watch it, I was like, I don't know why you're saying this. I was very
I was more mad at Jade City.
Jade City has more visceral emotions.
Yes, I was very mad at that. I was mad at myself for not liking it.
Yes.
So that was probably why. But the Bone Season is the worst of those 3 books for sure.
Yes.
Jade City is the best technically, but the most disappointing.
Yes.
I DNF Jade City.
I didn't read it. I wasn't part of that live, so I have not and will not be reading
This
it
is
now.
as far as I got.
Ooh, that's not fair at all.
Yeah.
I know.
That's fair.
And I bought the book and everything.
I'm still very conflicted about if I'm going to read the next one or not, because like I want to push through, but there's so many also conflicting opinions that if the next book gets better or worse, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. This would almost put me in a reading slump. Like
I'm
not
more
sure.
likely to read that one than I was kind of like, maybe I'll read the second the Bone Season because everybody says it again. But I'm
I forgot we read that, honestly, at this point. I've erased it from my
like
memory.
2 months ago.
Listen,
I know.
I keep forgetting the main character's name, and then every time I'm reminded that it's Paige, and literally that's also your name, I'm like, how am I forgetting this? But that's how much my brain is like, no.
That as well. So I have 0 memories about that book. It's like a vague recollection of reading it.
Yeah.
It's been a rough reading year so far for us. We've had a couple good ones in there.
Okay, so the comparison though is also making me think. I think I gave Jade City maybe 3 out of 5 stars, or like 3.5. So maybe that means that this book is 2.5 stars.
That's what I'm saying.
There's
precedent,
Precedent.
there's legal precedent, and we have to. That's what a rating system is for. Comparing contrasting.
Yeah, well, if you follow precedents, that's what.
Paige, just let us know and we can come to your country instead of being here.
When you've got my marriage lined up, just let me know.
Yes, 100%. I'll get you sorted.
Okay. All right, that's it for real. The First Sister for July. As always, we'll let you guys know when the live show will be. It's getting harder to schedule these as people have plans now that we didn't have before, but we'll try and keep you guys informed on when we'll do the live show, and we hope that you will join us again next month.
Yeah, late July or early August.
Yeah.
Yes. All right.
Wish us luck.
That's it. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.